because you want to break into AI and build your career. I hope that being part of this community will help you to do so. To give you a proper welcome, I'd like to show you around the DeepLearning.AI offices and meet some of the teams so that you can see where it all happens.
Oh, hi, Andrew.
Do you want to tell our friends at Pine AI what you do at DeepLearning.AI?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I make articles and other media that help people learn about AI and help them understand the huge impact that AI is having in the world. Today, I'm putting together the next issue of The Batch, our weekly newsletter, and I'm looking for the biggest stories of the week to keep our readers informed.
What's been the most surprising thing you've run into working on The Batch?
How much is going on in this field? There's never a dull moment. You might think from the outside that machine learning engineers really understand everything about AI, but nobody understands everything about AI because this field is just coming to life right before my eyes as I put this thing together every week.
All right, I know you're really busy, so I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks. See you later.
Let's go meet Kian, who helped me create the deep learning specialization. He's working on an exciting new project. Hey Kian, so do you want to tell the people at Pine AI what you're working on?
Yes, sure. I'm leading a project called Workera, focusing on helping people get offers in AI, navigate by career, by testing their skills, preparing for interviews, certifying them, as well as matching and referring them to good jobs in AI.
That's really cool. And what's the most exciting part of your day?
You know, the AI field is new, organizations and jobs are still misunderstood. So I'm excited to help people understand what different types of jobs exist in the field, what tasks they will work on, and what skills are needed to achieve those tasks.
And that's really important work. Well, it's nice chatting. And now let's go chat with Hotel, who is on their product team.
Hey, Andrew.
Do you want to say hi to our friends at Pine AI and let them know what you're working on?
I would love to. Hi, everyone. I lead the product team in DeepLearning.AI, where we create AI education content accessible to people all around the world. People like you.
And what are you most excited about right now?
I am so excited to see our community grow and to see how eager people are to learn more about AI.
Thanks, also.
Thanks, Andrew.
So, as you can see, our team is working hard to support you and help you learn. It's never been easier than before to break into AI. So if you want to build a career, you can leverage online resources available, including open source code, datasets, papers, and online courses like a deep learning specialization on Coursera. As part of this journey, I hope you get your hands dirty too. Don't be afraid of diving in to build your own project, or go ahead and try to replicate a research paper that you're excited about. One thing that I've seen help a lot of people succeed is if you can build a community or find a community of fellow deep learners you can meet with and study with on a regular basis. In fact, I hope that this Pine AI meetup that you're at right now will be a good place for you to meet these people. I hope you enjoyed the event today and that you learn a lot, both from the talks and from each other. And once again, welcome to the DeepLearning.AI community.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone around the world. Thank you so much for tuning in again to another DeepLearning.AI. Thank you to DeepLearning.AI and Ad Media bringing you tonight's chat. We're going to be talking about something really special today. So for any of you fashionistas out there, or for anybody who's really geeky about logistics and supply chain, this is going to be very interesting for you. If you really have a deep understanding or a really interest in computer vision, there's going to be some really cool things we're going to talk about today. But before we dive deep into that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Fritz Peraza. Fritz, how are you this evening,
I'm doing
sir?
good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I love your shirt, Fritz. It's phenomenal.
I
Nice,
am
Fritz.
so
Are you
excited.
excited
I've
about
got
tonight?
all sorts of questions, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
Awesome. Well, I'll leave it up to you to introduce our host, and then we'll get our evening underway. I hope everybody enjoys
All
tonight.
right, so this is an honor to introduce Lis Morales-Hellebo. She is currently a co-founder of the Worldwide Supply Chain Federation, an organization that is changing how supply chain professionals learn about, collaborate, and adopt supply chain innovation around the world. The New York Supply Chain Meetup is a founding chapter attracting hundreds of attendees from around the globe to its monthly events. She is also a co-founder and general partner of REFASHIOND Ventures, a NYC-based early-stage supply chain technology venture fund that invests in startups refashioning global supply chains. She founded and launched the New York Fashion Tech Lab in 2014, with Springboard Enterprises and the Partnership Fund for NYC while serving as executive director for the first year. Lisa's previous fashion tech startup, Shopsy, raised capital and participated in Techstars after she was selected as one of the top 10 women in DC tech. Lisa is an active advocate for organizations that help minorities gain access to opportunities for funding, championship, and growth. She serves on the advisory board of Puerto Rican accelerator Parallel 18, the luxury resale site Le Prix, and board directors for the Center for Advancing Innovation. A graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, Lisa has been featured in numerous publications and media outlets and is profiled in the best-selling book, Disruptors: Success Strategies for Women Who Break the Mold. A distinguished speaker, she has keynoted numerous events and participates in panels covering technology, supply chain, logistics, venture capital, fashion tech, women in tech, diversity, and more. It is an honor to introduce Lisa tonight.
Hi, thank you so much.
Awesome, Lisa.
Such a pleasure to be here. Do you want me to dive right into my talk? I've got so much I want to share with you tonight.
Yeah, please, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Fritz, for that lengthy intro. It sounds exhausting when I hear back everything I've done.
By the age of 25, which is amazing.
No, God, I wish. You know, we get better with age, like wine and all great things.
Like wine.
If I could share my screen, I'd love to pull up my slides. Fantastic. I'm going to be talking to you about AI for supply chain, and in the context of my fund, ReFashion Ventures. ReFashioned champions companies that are refashioning global supply chains. We believe that the climate change is impacted by human behavior, and if everyone can agree on that, then all human behavior is driven by supply chains. If you want to address the root cause of climate change, we need to address the biggest elephant in the room. So we invest across these categories: next-gen logistics, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, and data and predictive analytics. Most people tend to think of supply chains and conjure up images like this: just containers, trucks, airplanes, ships. Supply chain, however, has evolved to be far more complex. And this is thanks to a number of different variables, but basically the latest definition that I like to describe the current state of supply chain is that it's when everything can now talk to everything else. It's the biggest potential operating system to have ever existed on this planet, and it is just being born. So what are the factors to have ever existed? Oh, I was hearing myself again. There are 4 key factors impacting global supply chains. The first being the 4th Industrial Revolution. That is the biggest evolution since computers and automation. This is now referring to cyber physical systems. This is everything being able to talk to everything else, and combinations of robotics and human engagement. The second key factor is really our globalized supply chains and the massive shifts that are happening around the world. You have trade wars and tariffs, and everyone is painfully aware of that this year, thanks to COVID. Supply chains are really important when everyone runs out of TP. We also have, of course, climate change, and this year we can add global pandemics to supply chain risks and disruptions. When entire continents can be on fire, like Australia or half of the United States, you suddenly need to realize that your supply chains lack agility and resiliency, and you should be thinking about refashioning them. The last I like to talk about is innovation versus disruption. If you are not looking to disrupt your own company or your own processes, you are most likely going to become obsolete. And that is because most innovations are just trying to do iterative things, doing the same thing a little bit better. Lots of innovations and lots of money to be made in that space. But right now, because of the rate of acceleration, those types of innovations don't have the long lifespan that they used to. You can do new things, but the best possible approach is to make things that make the old things obsolete. And I'm going to be showing you some innovations that do just that. 4 companies to be precise. The first being in agrotech. They're called Grow Intelligence, and they help companies in the global agricultural industry gain better insights and make more accurate forecasts via AI and machine learning. They have some fabulous visualizations where in an article that my co-founder wrote on this company on FreightWaves, you can read his deep dive, but really the issue with most artificial intelligence engines starts with creating standardized, clean data. There's so much noise and garbage in global agricultural supply chain data. So they started there, and from there, we're able to build such amazing analytic tools and insights and visualizations. They now can pretty much predict a butterfly wing flapping on the other side of the world, impacting, your need to grow certain crops on the other side of the world. And that's exactly the new opportunity that has arisen through your data being channeled through artificial intelligence engines. Next is Savitude. Savitude is fashion's ideation engine. So my background, I have a love and addiction to the fashion industry. So this company really excites me. It's one of the real last possible spaces for innovations that are truly unique because it uses AI, machine learning, and computer vision to take a process of ideation, creativity, that usually takes 2 to 12 weeks for a fashion designer to sketch by hand, and breaks it down to 5 minutes to 5 days. And that is done through this amazing platform. I'll show you a demo, but before we get into that, the designer inspiration images literally are the inputs. Let me say that again. You don't need to code. You don't need to know anything about computers. You just need to be able to select the images that inspire you, create your own collections of images, and then have the computer translate that real time into actual designs. So this is what it looks like. This interface seems fairly simple, and I know it's going to boggle your mind. The first time I saw it and started showing it to others, they couldn't comprehend exactly what they're seeing. But these images are then mapped to these settings on the right, and you can choose your weighted ranking of influence for each image set. You can select your primary color, secondary. I'm going to hit save. And you're literally building a visual sort of algorithm to teach the machine learning on the back end what to extract from each of these images, to then ideate on the fly some designs. So this is the magic. The process of actually doing this by hand, again, takes most designers 12 weeks. We just created an entire collection in 2 minutes. These are, again, not something that's just pulling static images from a library. This is creativity fueled by artificial intelligence. It's absolutely the future. Next up, fleet ops, automated freight matching. So jumping from fashion to freight, artificial intelligence is everywhere and can be applied to every complex data set. Trucking has been a fairly static industry, lots of moving trucks, but the data, again, was locked up until recently when I think it was 2016, the ELD regulations dropped and it allowed for, or required, that all commercial trucks be connected to the internet. Suddenly, you have all these signals, physical things talking to other physical things, creating live data that then can be tracked, instant bookings, recommendations, document transfers, etc. This is a massive data set of fairly unknowable variables. And even with this limited data and historical artificial intelligence of knowing your finite options, you can create incremental optimization. The next company I'm going to show you, Optimal Dynamics. This is a real paradigm shift. For those that truly love artificial intelligence, there hasn't been a massive leap forward in this space for decades. And Optimal Dynamics was born in Princeton's Castle Labs, where Professor Warren Powell was there doing research for 30 years. Let me repeat, 30 years it took to get this optimization to come to market. Why? Because existing AI works with massive data sets, but there's finite outcomes. So if you think of all the existing known Watson or Google, there is massive amounts of data to crunch. And it seems like magic that they could win chess games, etc. But they're really just looking at all the possible known outcomes. The difference with Core.AI is that they have a way to use high dimensional learning to create sequential uncertainty decision making. And this, in layman's terms, means existing AI, finite outcomes. Core.AI is real-time thinking and decision-making based on projections into the future of unknowable variables. It's mind-boggling. So what can this do, this new level of intelligence? This, I think, is going to be the foundation for all future artificial intelligence. Once you get into real decision-making, thinking across complex systems, you're going to need something as powerful as this. It's already proven that you could predict 3x further into the future. 90% increase in automation and 18% increase in asset utilization. And that's just applied to fleet optimization. If you think about fleet optimization, the unknowable variability is really weather, road conditions, driver training, how many hours they slept, how long is their latest run, what are they hauling, what type of truck do they have, when was it last maintained? All of these variables are so constantly fluctuating and unknowable, but Optimal Dynamics can create decisions real time to yield real efficiency. So what is really AI for supply chain? It boils down to these three things: data quality, efficiency, and new actionable insights. And that's what's possible nowadays with artificial intelligence. I look forward to questions.
That is awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much. I have a couple questions, but Fritz, would you like to start off?
Sure. I do have a question about Savitude. First off, like that's so cool. And like, is that open to like all people, or is there like a payment?
There is a private beta. You can go to savitude.com, I believe. Let me double check. Studio.savitude.com and sign up for the private beta. And you can play around with this and generate your own designs on the fly. And it actually exports them into Adobe Illustrator vector files. So if you think about this, this really is unlocking human creative potential. Before, you'd have to be a trained fashion designer to be able to think of something, turn it into something that could be designed and produced, and then the processes to get it into patterns and the digital PLM. This outputs the inputs for the needed production systems. Ooh.
We have a question here from Christian. Yeah. Is the application available for purchase as an add-on for a website?
I can put you in touch with the CEO. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about that.
That's awesome. And if you would like, Lisa, please let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, your social media handles, and they can follow you.
Yeah. So I'll leave this up here for a minute. Lisa at refashion.com. My website is just refashion.com. And on most social media, Twitter, Instagram, I'm just at Lisa Hellebo.
Perfect. Bertie, I think there's another question. Can we put that one up?
All right. This one's from Jessica. She says, how many platforms use this application, or what websites can I visit to check it out?
Are we talking about Savitude again, I'm assuming?
I'm assuming, yeah.
It's fun to look at pretty images and fashion. So Savitude is still an early stage startup. The CEO and founder is a seasoned serial entrepreneur. She's built this platform using her own money, and she is just now looking to raise $1 million. She built her first artificial intelligence and machine learning company that she took public, IPO'd. Her second one, she exited for just under $100 million within a year. And then she decided to go back to school to study fashion design, happened to be able to show at New York Fashion Week for 6 years, and then went back to her first love, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and created this amazing innovation.
Wow.
Oh, break out your checkbooks. Go fund this amazing technology.
That is phenomenal. And has Savitude been utilized in the real world by any of the fashion brands?
Yeah, so actually, she did a pilot this past fall with a company whose head designer got COVID. And yeah, so her system can ingest an entire brand's library of images to the beginning of their brand history and basically define an algorithm that allows them to create bumper, like guardrails in the algorithm to design like that brand. And so she did that for this brand, and they created their fall collection within a week using just her AI.
Yeah.
And this is not meant to replace fashion designers. It's meant to enhance their ability to go to market. And of course, in crazy pandemic situations where an entire design team is taken out of commission, it's handy to be able to have the option to continue business as usual using artificial intelligence.
That's amazing. Now, I know the application uses from the way you described it. It's learning based on the data sets of what the designers have created. That's essentially the training set, right? Mm-hmm. But have they added, or are they thinking of adding a prediction of what people would buy, like based on purchasing or based on what people are watching, doing? Is there that component of combining?
Yes.
Not even just creating things that kind of look like what you've done, but really creating things that have a higher probability of being purchased, and have they tested that?
Yes, good question. So yes, she absolutely has. And it's hard to communicate to the layperson exactly what you're looking at, because great AI looks like it's magic. It's look like, oh, it's simple. You must have just been pulling up an image set of pre-designed patterns that match that algorithm query, right? No, these are created on the fly. So to then layer on the further analytics that she's built, you can do things like body shape. If you know the body shapes of your demographic, if you're, say, mapping to Latinas, we tend to have some hips and booty and curves. So you might want to go with a bottom hourglass. Hit analyze for whatever collection you've pulled into here, and it'll map a percentage of which body, if it's great for bottom hourglass. So your top ones are at the top, and you go down to the least viable options for a bottom hourglass body type. So it's a pretty robust package, and she has deployed this with brands to understand how to create things that actually will be purchased by their users, because it doesn't just have to be pretty. It has to make someone feel good in the clothes. And historically, most design is designed for supermodels and the one body shape of a hourglass. And if you're not an hourglass, a traditional hourglass, then most things need tailoring, or you get a size too big and just live with the gap in the waist because you have a tiny waist and bigger hips. It's not about us being wrong. It's about the industry having such inefficiencies before innovations like this that they couldn't predict all possible permutations of size, shape, and proportion. So they standardized it. And if you didn't fit small, medium, large, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think we need, do they have like pear shaped? I'm more pear shaped, like
yes.
all pear shaped men. I don't know if they have that option on there, but that would be ideal for me.
Yeah. So I think besides Savitude, I think the Optimal Dynamics Core.AI is really impressive. I wish I could do a demo of that as well on all the other platforms. But they're behind paywalls and I don't have access.
Yeah.
But what that really unlocks is the ability to power these massive networks, because once you get into everything talking to everything else, the amount of data, the unknowable variability of this interconnected world we're living in is so massive. And if we want to really harness the power of IoT around the world and for hopefully the betterment of humanity, we need an engine that takes that intelligence to the next level. And it requires this high dimensional learning.
You absolutely couldn't agree. And I want to dive into optimal dynamics some more. But Fritz, I think we have a couple more questions, at least 3 more questions on Savitude alone. So let's
So Abby Flower asks, how did you come up with the idea for this application? I assume she means the creator.
Savitude.
But yeah.
Yeah. So Savitude is because she had built 2 previous artificial intelligence machine learning companies, the first IPOing, the second selling for $100 million, and then went back to school to study fashion design. So really there is I think a lot of people think about entrepreneurship as like, let me find the thing that'll help me get rich. And it's not that at all. Entrepreneurship as like, let me find the thing that'll help. It really is about finding your unique perspective that needs to be shared with the world. And that's really the biggest opportunity that's being lost on corporate America behind what diversity really should be about. Diversity is really about the lenses that all of us experience the world through. we're all unique and different. And yet, if you look at most entrepreneurs in this crazy world of venture capital, we keep on saying, oh, pattern matching, get a warm intro. There's all these barriers for any innovations to get access to capital, access to mentorship, access to buyers. And so one of the reasons I'm building a fund is because there's not enough people that look like me, that have experienced the world through my lens, that are deploying the capital. So I found value in what Savitude is building. And it sounds like a lot of you out there also see a lot of value in what she's building and her contribution to the world, because she knows AI and machine learning and has an amazing CTO she's collaborated with in the past. And she equally loves fashion. She's built a successful brand. So your interests are what's going to set you apart and lead to your contribution to this world.
Completely agree. We need definitely more diversity, and that's really the push of what Ad Astra is trying to do, and bring diverse voices, diverse ethnicities, diverse genders, diverse orientations to the table. It just makes life more interesting, and it makes innovation more valuable. Yeah. Come at it from different perspectives. Fritz, we got what other questions?
Yeah, I had something. Can I ask mine? Sorry. I had something that you said that really I thought was so interesting, because I'd never thought of it from that perspective of like the connection from like all this AI and supply chain with climate change. And I thought that was so interesting because I really had never thought of it that way. And I was wondering if you could like elaborate more on that.
Yes, please. So, my unique story and the unique lens I bring to this world is my lifelong obsession with fashion. Since I was a little girl, I loved fashion magazines, loved fashion. I would have to design my own clothing, and my mom would make it because we couldn't afford to buy fancy, Jordache jeans or whatever. And so my entire life, I've been driving my career towards the fashion industry. And I came by way of technology and by way of customization, personalization, on-demand manufacturing, which suddenly the industry is now realizing they need desperately. So my two paths of obsession have intersected at the perfect time to drive this industry in a totally new direction. And as a result, I founded the New York Fashion Tech Lab in 2014 and then studied apparel supply chain for a year. And that led me to understand, why is this industry so broken? And oh my God, it's massive. It touches 1 in every 6 employees on this planet. It is one of the largest polluters as an industry in the world. And what most people don't realize is the amount of textile waste that we don't know what to do with, and the amount of microplastics. I think many people are starting to see all the articles that are being written about microplastics. Most people don't really think about, where do these microplastics come from? They come from our clothing. Because we wear, the majority of fibers nowadays are not cotton or hemp or some organic fiber, wool. It's polyester. And that is an oil product. That is plastic. And when you wash your clothing, it breaks down those microfibers into the wash, goes out in the water, gets into our rain system, and rains down on top of the highest mountains and to the depths of our ocean. So we are now consuming every week a credit card's worth of plastic because of our fashion supply chains. So it's about caring about really understanding whatever you're obsessed with and finding solutions. So that's what led me to understand how much our supply chains are impacting life on this planet, and the fact that we keep on trying to tell consumers, this is on you, recycle, buy better things. No, the corporations have spent billions of dollars to convince you that it's about you bringing your plastics out to the curb. It's about them and their supply chain choices.
Wow, thank you. That was awesome. That was really cool. We can get back to the other questions now. It was just something I really wanted to know.
Yeah.
This one is, how does the application enhance designers when the users are the main people designing? Could this potentially take away from the designer? This is probably about Sabitude as well.
Yeah. So I think most innovations people fear when they first see it, especially if it's disrupting your industry. Disrupting or enhancing, like robotics. Everyone's saying, oh my God, robotics are going to take away jobs. It's going to take away simple manual labor first, for sure. But it will also create new opportunities for new types of jobs. So it's not a matter of they're going to be replaced. I see this as any brand really being enhanced, because it doesn't just unlock speed for existing brands, but it allows also emerging designers to come to market that couldn't otherwise ideate and come up with the actual vector files that need to go to a manufacturer. So it's enabling creativity on a whole other level that you can try to fight, but you can't fight innovation. So you better adopt and learn how you can benefit from it. Speed is money to a brand. And if you can target and better understand what you should actually produce for which types of body types and your audience, it's way better than the highly inefficient overproduction the industry does today. There's about $50 billion of dead inventory just in the US every year. This is stuff the industry produces in volume overseas to get to a low landed cost of goods sold, and knowing they're going to have about 50% of that go to discount, after discount, until it's at 90% off and nobody wants it. And then they have to haul it back to a warehouse and either ship it to landfill or incinerate it, both of which are horrible for the planet.
Wow.
That
is crazy.
Fritz, do you have another question?
No, that was most of them.
Yes, the site does. There's body shape. There's all kinds of analytics.
I have a question, Lisa, from a VC perspective. When you look for companies, when you're looking at a team, when someone is pitching to you, what is it from your perspective that you evaluate or that you think is value, the things that you feel when someone is pitching? Is it the team and the person, the technology? From everything that you know, what are those things that you look for most when you're trying to make a determination whether to pull the trigger on investing in a group or not?
Sure. So we love early stage, which has far fewer data points than most VCs are comfortable with. But I kind of love uncertainty and reading the tea leaves to see the patterns of the human behavior, the life experiences that led them to this focus, the amount of grit. You know, if you're an immigrant, you know what it means to have to hustle or you're going without. And so that amount of tenacity is baked into the human and you can't teach it. So I think at the earliest stage, that's one of the biggest variables we look for. What's this person's right to win? Why is it their problem to solve and their innovation to bring to this planet? And then little less on what have they done in their past, but what sort of access and tenacity do they have to get access to the right people to move their innovation forward? Because I didn't have access to the fashion industry for a long time. Yeah. It didn't stop me. I kind of plowed my way in there, and when nobody would invite me to their table, I built my own. So it's looking for that sort of rules don't apply to me, I'll make my own damn rules sort of personality traits, because you know that it takes that grit to get something from an idea to a product market fit, and then to scale.
Right. That's pretty cool. Now, with Sabitude, again, for all those entrepreneurs that might be out there watching this or that will see this afterwards as well, just the basic algorithm of what they're creating is really, really impressive. Beyond just the fashion industry, have they thought about what to use a computer vision model for, or are they open to having discussions with other entrepreneurs? Because I'm sure people could take that concept and do really, really cool things around computer vision for all sorts of applications.
Oh my God, yes. I'm sure, yes. Please reach out to Camilla Olson at Sabitude with all of your desires to give her oodles of cash, because I think she deserves it. I think this type of creativity and innovation is usually not seen because, I mean, what I found in working in a fashion tech company and building fashion technology is that most investors are white men. And white men that invest in things that they know, have expertise in, care about, or in founders they want to go grab a beer with. So when you're a Latino woman, odds are just stacked against you. And less than 2% of all venture capital goes to women, even less to women of color. I've been referred to as a unicorn because I've raised venture capital as a solo Latina technical founder. What? You shouldn't exist. Well, that's horrible. Shame on the industry, not shame on me, you know? So I think that Camilla's technology definitely is just, it's unlocking the potential for creativity and design across so many industries. Fashion is where she has the initial passion has started, but it can unlock creativity for car design, for interiors, for architecture, furniture. So many pieces of our world are enhanced by beautiful things and creativity. And yet we don't have enough VCs that care about that, you know? And it took a woman and another woman to see the value in what she's working on to help her get the access she needs to take it to the next level. I'm proud to say she has gotten buy-in from some major brands, and she's just getting started. So if you have deep pockets and you want to get in early before the next Google for creativity hits it big, reach out to Sabitude.
Awesome. I think we have another question, Fritz.
Okay, so this one is, how much human biases can make their way into AI systems? How do you approach biases in AI?
Oh my God, great question. Thank you. I think it speaks to the lack of diversity, how much bias. AI is really taught by the people that are programming it. And again, if you have all of the same type of person that is programming your algorithms and your systems, you're going to get inherent biases inherited from those people. So say white men in Silicon Valley who perhaps have had a more, shall we say, affluent life with less challenges, that doesn't know what it means to have to live paycheck to paycheck, or to understand that not everyone looks like them. Maybe we should have more diversity than just Asian and a white guy looking at the facial recognition. I mean, it's pretty sad that Google has recently and in the past found massive flaws in their data sets because, oops, the engineers building artificial intelligence for facial recognition forgot that people can be brown. And therefore, they weren't even recognizing faces that were brown. And oh my God, if you were a woman and you were brown. So it's just insane that we have such blind spots in our current companies. And I think it comes down to not just the people that are building it, but the people that are investing in it. This is supposed to be an industry that, as far as I'm concerned, is the most creative thing you could do in the world. Deciding whose company and whose technologies get to exist in the world. What? That's power, you know? And so if everyone looks the same, has the same education, same status, you're inherently leaving out the majority of the world. And the world is becoming more and more brown. So we need more diversity and governance around your intentional unlocking of your biases, your unconscious biases.
Yeah, completely agree. It is a great question, Ruxism, or Ruximism. There's a lot of writing, or more so, and we need more discussions around this particular topic. We need to be discussing how AI can perpetuate systemic inequalities, and they've been shown to, not just with facial recognition, but MIT has done a couple of studies, and they were the ones that showed that facial recognition wasn't recognizing people of color. And there's a movie out covering that, a documentary covering that as well. But they've also shown applications within healthcare for like insurance companies, where recommending not enough or too much insurance, depending on inherently biased data. And the reason that is because it doesn't matter how phenomenal the algorithm is. At the end of the day, AI is two very simplistic things. It's just data and mathematics. And the algorithm mathematics can be phenomenal, where you can have the world leaders, whether it is people at Amazon or Google or whoever else, that are creating amazing algorithms. But if that initial data set is biased, whether it was based on systemic issues like redlining, or the fact that you only have white faces to train data from, then it doesn't matter how great the math is, the outcome is going to be biased. And the issue is that if you just release it out into the world without having checks and balances on that, then the application will perpetuate those inequalities, which is one of the reasons it's something I've written about a lot, but it's one of the reasons I'm a big proponent of setting something up, a federal board similar to the FDA around emerging technologies, to be able to verify that these technologies aren't going to perpetuate inequalities, regardless of what the technology is, because we're doing a lot of things that are breaking barriers in so many aspects. And Silicon Valley in general is phenomenal. I mean, it's been the epicenter, and others like it now. There's different centers as well, but obviously they're the poster child. But they're phenomenal at asking if something can be done, and then going out and trying to do it. But they're horrible at stopping to ask should.
Yes. Oh my God.
And so that's something that we need to be having intentional conversations about these things, because we can have serious ramifications. We're seeing it live right now, right? Look at social media, an amazing piece of application of software, of technology, and it can do great things. You can keep in contact with family members all over the world, but social media can also be used as a device to drive wedges between people, and we're seeing that right now in the United States. Knowledge, although it itself is just a tool, it can be used for good and it can be used for ill. So we have to be adult, and we have to have real conversations about these and make sure we put checks and balances on these types of technologies. And AI is one of the ones that can. I'm a huge proponent, and it can just change the universe beyond our wildest dreams. But if not done correctly, and if not done with intentional thought, it can do much worse than we can possibly imagine as well.
I love that you pointed out the should it be made? We can. It's possible, but should we? I would love to, have more governance asking those sorts of questions, because capitalism, traditional capitalism versus stakeholder capitalism, are two very different things. And thank God for Mark Benioff and his leading the definition of stakeholder capitalism, and really how you can build a company that is profitable and invest in people and planet. I think if Facebook had initially looked at their mission versus their business model, you'd see right from the get-go they were diametrically opposed. Our mission is to connect the world's people and to create joy, or whatever BS. And but their business model, they make money by selling those people and their data. they're diametrically opposed. So if you can create a business model, a way to monetize your whatever your product or service is that is aligned with your mission and values, that inherently is going to be better for people, planet, profits. And stakeholder capitalism, creating equity and parity across your supply chain, for example, instead of being extractive and exploitative of your manufacturers, say, like in fashion, really understanding that they're a partner. And if they thrive, you thrive. If they're successful and have better quality and higher throughput for you because you're giving them bonuses based on your profitability and want to make sure their staff is healthy and rewarded, it's better for the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, I like the term equitable capitalism that people have been starting to speak about a lot. Thanks, Fritz. I think we have another question.
All right. What advice do you have for somebody starting off into this field that isn't a minority?
I'd say that everyone has their own diverse story. So like I was saying before, your lens that you've experienced the world through is your unique perspective. And if you personally don't feel that you have enough that is unique to offer, then you should be looking to probably create more a well-rounded experience for yourself. If people are looking to hire, the same old Silicon Valley, Stanford grad, Harvard MBA, white guy, how are you going to stand out? Because they're all as talented as you. They all have the same, opportunities and I hate to use the word privilege, but access that most do not. So I think it's just like with any resume or job application, how are you really presenting your uniqueness? And what is the thing that you're inherently really passionate about? And you need to sell yourself just like you would sell anything to get a job. It's always comes down to, I'll hire somebody with grit and passion over skill and resume any day.
Fritz?
All right. How would AI operate in a completely free market? Do you think it would favor the structure of a monopoly in a corporation?
Yeah, in a completely free market. I don't know. That's a good question. I think that there isn't such a thing as a completely free market. So it'll be hard to ever see that experiment in the wild. And I would hope that we are smart enough to think that we need to regulate and set some constraints and ask the should we question about some of these important things rather than just letting it run rampant. Because I guess in a totally free market, letting AI run amok would look something like Terminator eventually, And I don't want that to happen personally, so.
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe, but it's a really tough one. Like Lisa says, it's since we don't really have that, right, it's really hard to see how that would play out. And that's why we have all these special, not that I'm an economist, but that's why we have all these special agreements, like between us and in the European Union. We're trying to do TPP before. That's why we have all the agreements that we have here in between Canada and ourselves, all the special trade agreements. So there's never truly a completely open market at the world stage, right? But to Lisa's point, typically, and going back to the bias question, a lot of the problems with AI that we envision really comes because of our own biases. Because all the data is really based on humans and human interactions. And although we have some, humans can do some amazing things and show great love and compassion and do some really altruistic things, but if you look at throughout society, humans can do some horrific things to each other for all sorts of reasons. People can develop biases towards someone. And so at the end of the day, people talk about AI and its bias, but it really comes from human bias. And that's why some people argue that perhaps AI is really our salvation, that perhaps if the computers could be more trustworthy and more matter of fact as opposed to the way humans are. But to Lisa's point, what if their solution is we no longer need humans, kind of thing?
Yeah, you humans are the infection on this planet. You're the virus. We're going to eradicate you.
Like the Matrix.
Yeah.
But we have another question, Fritz.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite books or thought leaders in AI?
So I will be totally biased here and recommend my co-founder in ReFashion Ventures, Brian Longaway. He is a weekly columnist at FreightWaves. And if you want to read some exceptional articles on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and real-world use cases, written so that you can understand its true complexity, use cases and applications, and the underlying differences in each of the technologies, check out his article. It's Brian, AOAEH. If you Google that and FreightWaves, you'll find all of his articles. And then he interviews Professor Warren Powell at Princeton's Castle Labs, who is the innovator that came up with optimal dynamics stochastic optimization. Warren Powell is genius. Like, I certainly can only speak remotely intelligently and coherently on everything that he's been able to accomplish in his 30 years because Brian has translated all of it into layman's terms through all of his writings. But there's a number of universities that put out a lot of great content. I'm a little biased towards Carnegie Mellon because I'm an alum, but MIT also, I guess, will be passable.
So funny. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. This has been phenomenal. We're coming up to the end of the hour here. Is there any kind of closing remarks you would like to give, or anywhere you would like to send the audience that is watching this and will watch this in the future as well?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to learn more about all the companies that I spoke about and gave a little presentation on earlier, they're all written about in Brian's article series on FreightWaves. He writes every week, so check that out. And you can always visit us at refashioned.com. That's refashion, letter D.com. And I can be found at Lisa Hellebo on Instagram, Twitter, most channels.
Awesome. Well, to everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed Lisa's phenomenal talks on everything that you can do with AI for supply chain logistics. Everyone really loved what you can do for fashion. So that was a very popular thing. So that's phenomenal. So thank you so much, and stay tuned again for the next episode of Pi and AI. We'll be back to you fairly soon after the holidays. Fritz, you want to close this out, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and chatting with us. This was an amazing, informative evening. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much. It's been
Good night,
fun.
everyone.